Hi, aloha guys, coming to you with another YouTube video. It's been a little while since I've done my YouTubes and all of that, and the hunting videos. You guys can go back and look at them, and maybe some archery shooting stuff. But I'm thinking about kind of starting it out more regularly, and maybe hopefully helping out the hunting and archery community that I have locally. Videos are coming from Hawaii. I live on the Big Island of Hawaii, and there's not a whole lot of archery resources or even resources for going hunting for that matter. So I think there's a little bit of a void there, and I'd like to try to put some content out there to hopefully help everybody. But I had done one video about the silverback, how to shoot the silverback, and I got a question here on the YouTube. You guys can check it out. It's from Hansen's Custom Flies. It says, great video, Ryan. Can you do a video on how to shoot a knock to it, applying the same concepts you talked about? Thanks, man. So yeah, I did a video on the silverback, how to shoot it, and who it's for, what kind of the overview of how it's used. But you can do one here on the knock to it, and let's get started here. All right, so that video, you guys can search for it back in my channel, but I talked about using the silverback tension activated release. I think I have some videos too, shooting it at maybe 80 yards or something, and you can get really accurate and really proficient with a tension activated type release. But the question was based on how to apply the same principles to shoot a thumb trigger like the knock to it. And what I'm going to first say is, again, like the other video, go to Dudley's videos and maybe see if that information doesn't help you. He's the guy who made the thing or whatever, and kind of getting it from the source. But if that's not enough, sometimes seeing things from somebody else's perspective may help somebody else. So that's what I'm going to do here with this video. So what I would first say is, if it's pretty popular to go to a handheld release. See a lot of hunters maybe doing it just because I don't know, they might see target archers or more proficient archers doing it. What I would first say is, really, I would recommend learning how to use a tension activated release first, like the silverback or Carter Evolution or Stanislavski Element, I believe is the version of theirs. And get used to holding it, building pressure on it, that kind of thing, and it'll really teach a lot of things and maybe shorten the learning curve with one of these. I didn't do that when I first started, so I actually bought, not this one, but I bought a different Carter that I no longer have, because I sent it through the bow and snapped it in half and broke the arrow rest because I suffered from a little bit of mild target panic. But basically I didn't know how to hold it correctly or any of those things. There was no training aid or even online resources at the time to really figure it out. So what I would say is start with a tension release first. I mean, it will suck at first. It would take a while, but if you really want to get it, I would say this is the way to go. But back to it. So say you have one of these and you're pretty proficient. You know how to shoot a shot using back tension and those things. What I would say is you can also punch one of these too. Like, oh, it's in the middle, and then press the trigger, right? Fire. Some people are pretty proficient doing that. I shot like that my whole life, using an index finger release that I no longer have here, but and I'm never going back to one after I learned how to use this. But the truth is, for me, when I started with one, I didn't learn with this, so I started punching, literally timing and pressing one of these. And what happens is, instead of one finger just kind of pressing an index finger release, which doesn't influence the back of the arrow too much, you do it with this, like you press your whole hand and punch your whole hand kind of thing. It affects the back of the arrow. It'll affect your aim a lot. So you'll probably get bigger misses if you if you have a bit of target panic anticipation and you want to smash on this. So I would say, if you're gonna be a puncher your whole life, or you're shooting an index finger just fine, and you're fine with those results. Some guys are really good at it too. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. What I am saying is, you don't have to change to one of these things. Do whatever the hell you want to do. But what I'm saying is, I don't think you want to go punching one of these. It goes bad. Now there's some super high level professional archers that do actually press a thumb button slowly, or they actually punch it. They have it very light and they punch it. but I would say those are elite professional guys that, you know, they've been shooting other ways, you know, with maybe a tension or a hinge release or something like that. They've been shooting so many other ways that they don't suffer from that huge anticipation issues like maybe somebody who is not at their level. And, you know, let's be honest, there are levels to this game, you know, beginner, amateur, high level amateur, and good and elite perhaps. But getting back to it, so say you know how to use this, and we want to apply, as in the question, you want to apply the same principles to a thumb button. How do you do it? I would say, my own experience, it has taken a long time. So when I first started, I thought I mastered this in maybe half a year. Truth is, I didn't. It takes longer than that. I would say 1 year, maybe even 2 years for some people. And if you're really serious, just stick with the tension release until you're super proficient with it, and don't even touch one of these things until you're very good with this. I recommend it for some of the guys that I've been mentoring, and you know, they struggle in between. They want to go back to this, they want to get that control back and get back to getting accurate again, and not really getting the fundamentals down. So stick with that. But so say you're all good, the easy way to explain this is you're going to shoot it the same way with tension. So I'm going to click on the release here onto a piece of release rope, and this is a good way to start. I say with any new release, say even you're moving to a hinge or something like that, or even the tension release, get a release rope like this, and in front of your face, you know, literally observe what you're doing. So in this case, you're going to place your finger on the trigger. I would advise when you're starting out that don't make this trigger very light. As you can see, I can put some weight on this trigger. You see my thumb turning white there, and it doesn't fire yet, right? It doesn't fire, but as soon as I begin to pull on it, boom, it'll fire. So that's the premise of how I would say, or how I shoot it, or how I would begin to shoot it. You can modify it along the way, but I would say number one thing is you don't want to be afraid to put that finger on that trigger. So if you're going to be a puncher, fine, you know, put it off and smash on it, whatever you want to do. But if you're going to shoot it like a more back tension shot, like the same principles used for the silverback, I would say make the trigger heavy enough so that you're not afraid to put some weight on that trigger. So you can see here, right, I got good weight on it, and you're just gonna pull, and it'll fire. Do it again, weight on the trigger. You can kind of see my hands too, like my hands are laid out flat. They're not tight like this. If you're really tight, you will find that it may be harder to pull. So say you got tight hands and you get into anchor and you put your finger on the trigger and try to pull. As you're pulling, I'm really putting some force, it's not going. And the problem with that one is little nuance things that you may encounter when you're playing with this is what happens is, I'm gonna exaggerate this. So say my hand is lengthened, what's happened is as say your hands are getting tight as you pull, you're actually pulling the release into your hand and not engaging the trigger. Can you see that? Oh, sorry. Okay, you see that small little variation. So say everything's here and then you're pulling your hand tight, and it's not gonna fire because you're actually pulling everything back, but nothing is moving in relation to the trigger. So the way you need to get this to fire is hand flat, kind of not hard hands. I mean, you can shoot this with firm hands, but as long as you're not pulling with your fingers in. So it's not gonna fire too well with back tension if you're pulling with your fingers like this. And the truth is, if you mastered the silverback, now we're going into some deep rabbit holes here, but archery is very deep, and try to keep it simple, but can't explain all of these concepts unless you get into some of these things. So back at the silverback here, with back tension, when you pull on it, okay, you're pulling with your elbow back and you're not doing anything with your hands. Your hands just kind of hanging on like a monkey bar, you know, just hanging on it. And you pull with your back, you're gonna find that everything breaks away. How you know you're doing it wrong and not using back tension is this. What happened is some people will pull with their fingers or pull with their forearm, you know. So, and what will happen is when they shoot that shot, I'll show you here real quick, this is what you'll see. You'll see nothing. Like there'll be no continuation of motion. because all the motion was here. So they have tension on the back wall, and then they'll be squeezing their hand to fire it, and nothing will move. Versus this, look very closely, hand stays flat the same, and then I just pull with my back muscles. See, it breaks away. Versus pulling with the hand and forearm, nothing happens, right? This versus this. So that tenseness, we need to get rid of, I think, if you want to shoot a thumb button. Very nuanced. I think when the beginners start, you know, say you master this, you go to this, you'll find moments where, you know, you feel like you're pulling the cams off the bow and this thumb button ain't firing. And part of that problem may be because your hands are tense, or you're squeezing on the release as you're trying to pull backwards. So it's not moving, your hand is not moving in relation to the trigger. You know, you're just kind of keeping it all together and it won't fire. I mean, you could pull hard, I'm pulling hard, and nothing's happening, right? So flatten the drawback. You want the hand flat as if you're shooting the silverback correctly. Come to anchor, put weight on the trigger. You're not afraid to put weight on that trigger, and then just pull straight back. Pull, 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 pull. Boom, gone. Some little other nuancing is where your trigger placement is. I think Dudley's videos, his trigger is way back, and he talks about that being correct placement, I guess, or how he likes to shoot it. I've tried that. It feels like it's too long for me. Like, so I'm a really short guy. I'm 5'6", small little Asian guy. So I think his hands are really long, and other people's hands are longer than mine. So it just fits them that way that the trigger would be back. But for me, if I lengthen out my hand and I just come straight to the trigger, you could imagine if this barrel was rolled further back, it would go right into like the back of my thumb here. When some people do, they shoot like this, you know, they wrap everything up. And I know some people do that and just fine. You can experiment with all kinds of ways, and quite honestly, I can make a video of like the 50 different ways I can shoot this button. But what I have settled on after playing with all of them, which like relaxing the hand, or even some people like to curl this outer finger, so the release, you know, with the finger on the trigger, and you curl this outer fingers, it kind of pivots. It's pivoting the release, the trigger into your thumb, and fires that way. But the way I like to shoot it is just even pressure on all the fingers here. So I would say there's maybe not perfectly even, maybe 60-40 split between these two fingers and my ring finger on the trigger. But what happens is, as I begin to pull, I can feel that pressure even out between my fingers, and I guess you can't see it, but in a static sense, it might be slightly pivoting that trigger into my thumb, and it's firing. So that's pretty much how I use it there. Okay, now let's take it to the ball. It's my old Hoyt Pro Defiant. It's my hunting bow. It's the one I currently use. I bought it several years ago, and you know, a lot of people buy new bows every year. I don't. Too poor to do that, and even if I did have the money, I probably wouldn't buy a new bow every year. I just like getting used to one piece of equipment really good and getting really proficient with it, instead of, I don't know, I feel like it's, for the average person, it's like kind of wasting a lot of money to try to keep changing things all the time. But really like this bow, so I'm gonna translate it over to shooting the bow and knock to it. Grab a hunting arrow here. So same principles. If you learned how to shoot the silverback correctly, all of this won't even matter. So what I'm saying is, go learn attention release first. I would make life easier. If you can do that, I would say guaranteed you can learn the thumb. You'll have the fundamentals to learn the thumb button very well. If you don't, there may be some issues. Maybe a person doesn't have issues, but I'm saying probably a good majority will struggle. So just gonna draw back, and you can see the hand is flat, right? As if I'm shooting a silverback. Gonna just come to the target and anchoring with the hand flat. Gonna put pressure on the trigger. Bow doesn't fire yet because there's pressure on the trigger, but I'm just gonna start pulling straight back. Pull, 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 pull. Bow fires. pretty simple. I can do it again more up close. Okay, so here we are, more up close. I would add one more little tip detail that I can talk about, the small nuance thing. Maybe you guys can experiment with it. It'd be good for actually a whole nother video, and that would be alignment and setup. But I'll just go up close here and I can talk about it real quick. So drawing back, hands, you can see it's flat here. I'm kind of turning around so you can see that it's flat. But when I go to the target, my shoulders, the top of my shoulders, you see kind of that parallel line between the arrow and my shoulders, it should point straight at the target. So you want to align both shoulders with the target, and from this rear elbow, this elbow, I can kind of feel like a line developing between the target and the back of this elbow, and that's the line you're going to pull against. You're going to pull straight back so that you don't have any movement in the sight. So I'm just going to come, weight is on the trigger, and I'm just gonna pull and fire. So what I was explaining there was how you pull. Same thing with the silverback. So if you learn the silverback really well, let me grab it here. So if you learn the silverback really well, you'll learn that you know how you pull versus you're out here, jawline a little long, maybe here, a little short here. That line of how you pull back, if that line is a little off, what happens is as you're aiming, you'll begin to see your pin move, or you'll be fighting it front half, fighting the back half. So that's, again, I say really mastering this, it'll kind of teach you that direction of pull that'll give you the steadiest sight picture as you begin to build pressure. So some little nuances there, might be a little more than you need, but anyway, I want to get this YouTube fired up a little bit more, do a little more content, and catch you guys in the next one. All right, aloha.